I didn't have to bring out the whip. Be thankful. We're in James chapter 4. James chapter 4, and I think there's an echo, isn't there? Okay, so there's something weird with this microphone in particular. Testing, testing. Is that better? Is that better? Echo, 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 echo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Echo. Okay, let's just go back to the. Sign, right? This pulpit just lost a wheel, even though it has no wheels, and I lost one of the feet, and I said, "Oh, I just lost a wheel." So, all right, we're in James chapter 5, and it's echoey period. Well, that means you get to hear me twice then. Yeah. Woo! Yay! Yeah, that's. Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to preach from here or preach down there? Yeah. Well, we don't know why that's doing that, so obviously. But we're in James chapter 5 and verse 4, whether there's an echo or not. James chapter 5, verse 4. Indeed, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out, and the cries of the reapers have reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabaoth. You have lived on the earth in pleasure and luxury. You have fattened your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned, you have murdered the just. He does not resist you. I'm going to step away from this. That way, at least the people online can hear. I'll just try to talk loud. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
As long as I'm yelling at the top of my voice? Yeah, no, Rita can't hear me.
But what about online? That's
Yeah, they can hear me. What if I move back here?
Oh, I
Okay, yeah.
I've got the drop down there.
Okay, yeah, a little bit of chaos. Okay, anyway, James chapter 5 and verse 4. We started looking at James 5 and verse 4 last week. James is talking about why we should be patient. He's talking about the abuses that the rich have done against the poor. James 5 verse 4 in particular, what was one of the abuses that the rich did against the poor? What did the poor do for the rich? They went and worked where? In the fields. And what did the rich not do in response to them working in the field? What should they have done and what did they not do? They didn't pay them. Right? That's kind of bad. You ever go to work and not get paid for your work? You'd probably be a little angry, wouldn't you? Well, these guys were a little angry. They felt a little abused. And so James is going to turn his attention away from the rich, which he spent the first few verses criticizing, and now he's going to turn to the poor, turn to the abuse, and he's going to teach them how to deal with this abuse, how to respond to this abuse. In a word, how should they be responsive to this abuse? How should they respond to this abuse? Starts with a P. Patient. Patient. They ought to be patient. James has gone full circle here. As he's starting to conclude the book of James, he's going all the way back to what he said at the beginning of James. James chapter 1 and verse 2, what did he say? My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith works patience. And let patience have a perfect work, that you may be perfect and something, wanting nothing. Perfect and complete, wanting nothing. What's the word there? Keith's looking it up. But anyway, so James has come full circle here. He's started off with patience. He moved on to why we need to be convinced of serving God. And now in James chapter 5, in the last section of James 5, he's going to return to this idea of patience.
Entire.
That you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Yeah. King James says entire. Yep. Okay, so you've been abused. Verse 7, James 5. Therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and latter rain. Again, we talked about this at the tail end of class last week. What does the farmer do? During the planting season, he plants, and then does he go out and he just watches his crop grow? Does he like start cheerleading it? You can do it, Crop. No, because he's just kind of patient. He just kind of relaxes. Okay, who are these abused people? Who are they supposed to be patient for? They're going to be waiting for someone to come and to wreak retribution. Who is it?
Who is it?
The Lord of. Julie, do you start answering? Yeah, the Lord. Yeah, the Lord. What's the exact word that James uses? The Lord of what?
The Lord of what?
It's a Hebrew word.
It's a Hebrew word.
Starts with an S.
Starts with an S.
Sabaoth.
Sabaoth.
Yeah. Host.
Yeah.
The Lord of hosts.
The Lord of
armies.
The Lord of
armies is going to come, and he's going to
He's going to
seek retribution for the abuses that have been made against these poor, abused people. Therefore, be patient. Even as the farmer is patient, planting in the field during the planting season, and waiting until the harvest. Well, the harvest is eventually going to come. The vengeance of mine, saith the Lord. The Lord is eventually going to have vindication against these abusers. So be patient. You don't have to, as an abused person, you don't have to go and seek your own retribution. You don't have to become a vigilante and seek your own form of justice. Who is going to avenge you?
He's our judge.
He's our judge. And the judge is a good thing when you're innocent. He's going to defend us. Be patient. We don't have to seek vengeance ourselves. See, a lot of times, when one has done aught against another, that one who has been the victim, what does he want to do? Right? If one gets slapped on his right cheek, what does he want to do back to the person who slapped him? Slap him on the right cheek. Maybe slap him on the left hand too, just for good measure. What does the Bible say about that? What does Jesus say about that? If one slaps you on the right cheek, what are you to do? Give him the other cheek. Let him abuse you more. This is strange doctrine.
Romans 12 talks about that toward the end.
Yeah, you want to paraphrase it?
I would like to read it.
Okay, read it.
How about that? Starting in 17, it says, recompense no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it's possible, as much as lives in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will pay, saith the Lord.
Man, I could not have said that better myself. 1 Peter deals a lot with it. Of course, Matthew chapter 5 and that whole turn the other cheek, that deals a lot with it. But Romans 12 hits it right on the head with what we're talking about right now. Avenge not yourself. Don't seek that retribution. Let the Lord come and avenge you. You have one goal and one goal only, and that is to seek to live peaceably with all men, even if they're going to throw you in the lion's den. Even if they're going to saw you in half, even if they're going to point a gun at your head, our task is to live peaceably with them, not to return in kind, not to return evil for evil, as Paul would say there in Romans chapter 12.
Do you think it's sin to, I mean, you can control it.
Right.
And not do it, but you still feel that in your heart.
Yes.
You know, like,
Right.
but you don't do anything about it. Is that still sin?
It would be wrong to hate your brother. It would be wrong to wish ill on them. It is not wrong to avoid them.
That's what we talked about.
Yes.
Table in there.
Right. Yeah. So, if you're like, for example, in an abusive relationship, and I don't mean like just a marriage relationship. If you're in an abusive relationship, you got a friend who is as the phrase is now, toxic. Has anyone ever heard that phrase before? That's kind of the phrase thrown around. This is a toxic person. This is toxic people, right? You don't have to continue hanging out around them, right? When Paul faced some persecution, they let him outside of the wall in a basket, right? What was he doing there? He's running away. Multiple times before Jesus' hour came, John records for us that Jesus would evade people. Right? On one occasion, they wanted to kill him while he was teaching in the temple. Jesus knew his hour had not come, John reads, and so he ends up escaping them. And that's whenever he finds the blind man on the road, John chapter 9. So I guess that was at the tail end of John chapter 8. On another occasion, they wanted to make him king. At the tail end of John chapter 6, Jesus again evades them, goes into the mountain and starts praying. Right? So it's not that you have to endure the abuse, period. It's that if you are going to continue in that relationship, you're going to have to continue enduring it. It's either escape or endure. Those are your two options. You do not have the option to return in kind. You do not have the option to seek your own vengeance. Right? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It's not ours. Any other thoughts, questions, comments on that? And going a little bit more to what you were saying, Rita. Of course, from 1 John, was it 1 John chapter 4, 1 John chapter 5? If any man hates his brother, the love of God is not in him. For how can one love God if he hates his brother whom he has seen, and love God whom he has not seen?
I guess I'm not talking about hating.
Okay.
It just hurts your heart, and you have that feeling.
Yes.
And I don't like that feeling,
Yeah,
but I don't know how not to have that feeling.
that feeling.
Well, but if you have it and you recognize it for what it is.
I don't do anything about it,
Right.
other than,
I mean, but then you pray
Yes.
about it and you have to let it go.
Right.
I mean, yeah, like having the feeling is just,
Yeah.
I've heard people say that you need to
It's what you do
forgive
with your faith.
in that sense.
Do you stop and pray, or do you go to?
Let's see what James has to say about it. Let's fast forward in James, because you guys are right on the same track that James is on. Right. Okay. James 5 verse 8. You also be patient, establish your hearts for the coming of the Lord. We'll come back and talk about that establishing of the heart. Do not grumble against one another. Okay. We'll talk about the do not grumble. My brother, take the prophets, verse 10. My brethren, take Job, verse 11. Drop down to verse 13. All right. James in verse 13 is going to tell us how to deal with emotions in particular, right? In my notes, I've written down, children don't know how to regulate emotions, right? If they're excited, what do? Bounce off the wall crazy, right? And if they're upset, what do? They scream, bounce off the wall, kick, scream, squeal, right? Yeah, kids don't know how to regulate emotions. And you know what? It's not just a problem in 2025. A lot of adults don't know how to regulate emotions either, right? It's something that we all have to learn, right? Well, James here in James chapter 5, verse 13, he's teaching us how to regulate our emotions. When we are suffering, right, when we're feeling bad, what does he tell us to do? Pray. And when we are feeling glad, what does he tell us to do? Sing song. Okay, so that's a very micro view of what you're asking about here. But macro view, what do I do whenever I have these emotions that I probably shouldn't have? Is I've got to learn how to regulate them. I have to learn how to handle them, right? And of course, these ladies, they started off by saying pray, which is exactly what James goes to, right? And of course, that's not the only answer to it.
Counter does Ephesians 4:26. Does that not match up to what?
Maybe read Ephesians 4:26. What does it say?
Paraphrasing, just be angry, sin not.
Yeah, let not the sun go down on your wrath. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's right. The Bible the Lord wants us to regulate our emotions. The Lord wants us to.
Jesus was angry.
Yeah, and did not
He
sin.
was angry with money changers.
Right.
You know, and
But he was always in control. This also goes back to the idea of self-control or temperance, is what the King James says, right?
sometimes we lose that self-control.
Right. And it goes back to the idea of wrath. What's the difference between wrath and anger? Wrath is anger that's out of control. Right. Here's two Hebrew words for you. I think this one's very interesting. One of these days, if I find a third Hebrew word that goes along with these two, I might write a sermon on it. I don't know the exact word, but I know the definition. The word for patience in the Hebrew language is long-nosed. And what that means is
Take a deep breath.
long-nosed.
Okay, so conscious discipline, which is what we use
Mhm.
at school, and I don't know if Mandy's ever, I'm sure they
That's
probably,
just what I use.
yeah,
You're right.
I'm taking that, but yes,
Right.
that's just what I use.
so it's about being a co-regulator with
Yeah.
the kids. They can't regulate the emotion
Right.
yet, so the adult in the classroom has to be their co-regulator.
Right.
It's exactly what James is saying here, Rita. Like when you are feeling that, then you have all of us
Yeah.
to help you co-regulate. You know, like God never intended for us to regulate our emotions on our own. So that's why we have prayer. That's why we go to each other. Like where verse
Right.
16 says, confess your faults to one another, pray for one
That's
another.
right.
We are each other's co-regulators when it comes to those big emotions like that.
Right.
I mean, now we can't do it if someone doesn't let us know that they're needing help.
That's right.
I don't know that it's big.
Right.
A lot of mine is just spur of the moment.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's,
Yeah.
That's right.
but
Yeah.
that's, you know, like that's what it's about.
For the big stuff, right, that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, the Bible says the same, right? Galatians chapter 6, if any is weak among you, bear one another's burdens, so fulfill the law of Christ. But also, a couple verses later, what does it say? Each man shall bear his own burden, right? Okay, so it's talking about the big stuff versus the little stuff, right?
But I've had teachers come to me and say, conscious discipline is permissive, it goes against everything the Bible teaches, and I'm like,
Really?
wait a minute.
Yeah.
I don't know what Bible you're reading, but, you know, and I will have them look here in James, because it's like people that I can have a
Right.
conversation with. Like, it's,
That's right.
you know, that I have a relationship with, I can talk about it. But yeah, it's not permissive.
Right.
It is teaching there are consequences to our actions.
Right.
But first you gotta figure out what emotion you're feeling. You gotta have an adult there to help you support you through it. You know,
Right.
it's like, yeah.
Right. You know, one thing that I've said before is that Christianity is a group effort. Right. There's a reason why the Lord made it necessarily a group effort for us to be saved, and that's because we need each other. Right. The scientists say that we are social creatures. We are social beings, and that's at least that part is absolutely true. Right. We need each other. We need even the introverts. Right. We need each other to lean on. We need each other to help. If you don't think you don't need anybody, consider the pencil, right? There's a famous book on called like iPencil, something like that, and it talks about how everything that's needed in order to just build one pencil. What things go into the creation of one pencil? What do you need?
Lead.
You need lead.
Wood.
You need wood. You need some kind of rubber, right? And you need that little metal, right? And then you need someone to shape it. You need someone to box it, right? So we've just listed off 7 different people that are involved in the creation of one pencil, right? Okay, literally everything in life, from the clothes that I'm wearing to the food that I put on the table to the house to the roof that I sleep under. Literally everything in life requires a great multitude of people in order for us to survive. Well, the same thing goes with spiritual matters. Same thing goes with religion. It's a group effort, right? We need to lean on one another. That's why the Lord wants us to meet on the first day of the week at a minimum, right?
That was the point I was about to make. I mean, that's God, to me, this subject is God's perfect plan of why He wants us to assemble and be together.
Right. That's
Yes,
right.
We've been together for the last 6 nights in a row, but
Yeah.
it's been encouraging.
Yes.
And it's been uplifting, and like Julie said, we can not bear those things on our own. We can,
Right.
our brothers and sisters help us with those things. Encourage us if nothing else.
Right. When Alcoholics Anonymous meet and somebody is there for the first time, what's their protocol? The new member stands up and introduces himself. He says, "Hi, I'm Chandler, and I am I'm an alcoholic." What's he doing there? Right?
Share his story and
He's admitting he's got a problem, right? Is
Right.
usually the phrase that we describe it with. You know how the Bible would describe that?
Testimony.
That's how the denominations would describe it. You know how the Bible describes it?
well, it's a confession.
Confess your faults one to another.
But that
Yeah.
group is
You're
there.
bad.
That person, whether it be drug or alcohol or whatever it is.
That's right.
With the group as a whole.
Yeah, it's a group effort. They're there to build them up.
Who created that concept? God.
God did. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Before we get too far away from it. Okay, so one Hebrew word is long nose. The other Hebrew word is huff. Huff. What do you think that word is to translate it into English? Anger. Isn't that interesting? That's why it's going to be a sermon one of these days if I can find a third word. The Hebrew word for patience is, and the Hebrew word for anger is. What's the? Yeah, Terry's laughing. I probably need Kleenex after this. Yeah.
You know, that last sound used to sound like dog.
Yeah. Off.
He does it often, so.
It's an onomatopoeia, right? It's a word that's like zoom or pop or.
Just no sermons on the long nose, because that's
Buzz.
going to offend Jackie.
Yeah. What does the Lord want us to do whenever we're in tense situations? Does He want us to go, or does He want us to go
Deep breath.
Yeah.
regularly?
It's hard sometimes.
It is. Yeah.
But I mean, if Andy, who is 2 years old, knows what it means to stop and take a deep breath, we did that today actually.
Really?
In the pool.
Yeah.
She wasn't mad or anything, we were just talking about relaxing. And I said, when we relax, we take a deep breath, and she went,
Yeah.
like if she's 2 and she can do that,
Right.
a grown person should be able to relax.
That's right.
Before you react, pause
right.
and breathe.
You just have to make sure it's not a sigh.
Maybe that's the interpreted Hebrew word. You know.
Sometimes it is, you breathe in, and it is a sigh. But, you know, it's still going to calm your brain,
Yeah.
because what that breathing does to your brain.
That's
God
right.
designed us that way.
That's
He
right.
created us to do that.
Right. Yeah.
To settle our own nervous system. He designed our bodies.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
He did, yes.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
But a 2-year-old can do it, so I mean.
You're right. That's one of the goals of parenthood, and that's one of the goals of Christianity, is to help us to regulate these things. Because, you know, someone tells you, oh, that's an ugly haircut. You know, like, okay, whether you're 2 years old or whether you're, you know, 82 years old or whatever, you know, that's going to hurt, right? And so we have to, like Jesus, we have to learn how to deal with criticism. Was Jesus criticized
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
to the point of what?
Yeah.
Crucifixion, death, right? And yet, did he ever return? Was there ever guile found in his mouth, as as Peter put it? Was there any guile, vomit? Right? Did he ever spew something back at someone? No. There's a logical fallacy called argumentum ad tucoque. Right, that's Latin for you. That just means the argument of tucoque. What it means is since you did it, I can do it. Right? It's the idea of, well, you plucked my eye out, so now I get to pluck your eye out. Right? And it's a logical fallacy. A fallacy means that it's not true. Just because somebody has done aught against you, just because somebody has plucked your eye out, that does not give you the right to return in kind. Right? Just because you're angry doesn't mean you have the right to make somebody angry again. Again, James is talking to people who have been abused. Has anyone in this room ever been abused? Yes. That's a part of the human experience. Right? We're going to, yeah. We've all been abused. We've all had the short end of the stick come on to us at one point or other. Right? But we need to be like Harry S. Truman, right? On his desk in the White House, he had a little plaque that said what? Anybody know? Had to do with Gerald's favorite animal out there on the road. He was offering me that venison, that that deer that's dead on the side of the road. He said, "You like aged meat?" And I was like, "Where are you going with this?" But Harry Truman, the sign on this desk said, "The buck stops here." Right. What does that mean?
No more abuse.
No more abuse. I'm going to take it all.
Yep.
pass it on to anybody else. That's the attitude Christians need to have. It's got to stop somewhere, right? Talking about psychology, they talk about generational trauma. What's generational trauma? Yeah, repeat. My great grandparents abused their children abused their children abused children, all on down the line. Well, guess what? In order to break the cycle of generational trauma, the buck's got to stop somewhere. That's what James is talking about here in James chapter 5. Be patient. Endure. It's got to stop somewhere. We can't return in time to those rich who have abused us. We can't return in kind to anybody who has abused us, whether they're rich or poor. We have to endure it, right? And part of that is regulating emotions. Because it is not natural for us to go. It is natural instead for us to throw hissy fits, right? If you don't think that's true, look at what is happening in Los Angeles right now. Right? It's hissy fits. And other places in the United States. We don't know how to regulate our emotions. The Bible makes us complete. The Bible was given us to for life, to teach us how to live. And that includes the regulation of emotions. Thoughts, questions, comments?
It's not as easy as it
Mhm.
sounds.
No, it's not.
No,
It's, yeah.
no. Someone rips you off, I charge you, thousands of dollars, right?
Pulls out in front of you, whatever. I mean, it's like,
Right.
and that's where
Julie,
we have grace.
that's mine.
Well, but that's where grace comes in, Rita,
Right.
because we are human, we are gonna make
Yes.
mistakes. That's where we ask for forgiveness and we try to do better. I mean, we're
Right.
not gonna be perfect, but we just try. We have
Right.
to keep trying.
That's right. That's right. None of us are going to be perfect, but the goal is to, every time we have an opportunity to try the best we can, this time's going to be different. Right, Terry? Right? This time's going to be different, right? He's talking about the Steelers and the Hogs.
Season's gonna be different.
Yeah.
Cowboys been saying that for years.
Y'all know it's season.
This time is going to be different. Right? Yeah.
Different.
That's the goal of Christianity. That's the goal of Christianity, is to get up and try again until you succeed. And then once you succeed in one area, you get up and you try again until you succeed in another area until you die.
Do you think that's the spirit in us when we breathe in? The spirit is
Breath. Right, yeah, pneuma, ruach, yeah.
and that's what I think of when I take that deep breath.
Right,
And think on the spirit.
right, yeah. We have a spirit, and of course there's the Holy Spirit, and we were just talking about this in the men's Bible study last month. It's kind of hard to figure out where the spirit and soul are different. It's kind of hard to define those things. Hebrews 4 verse 12, the word of God is sharp and powerful, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit. Right, the Bible is so sharp that it can figure out the difference between the soul and spirit. But for the rest of us, that's kind of hard to do. Right? What's the difference between your soul and your spirit? I don't know. What's the difference between thoughts and intentions? Right? We'll use those words interchangeably, right? Well, I thought about doing this, or, well, I intended about doing this, and maybe we could give a little bit of a definition for it, and maybe we could even give a little bit of a definition for soul and spirit, but it's still hard for us to put our finger down on. In psychology in the 90s, there was a hypothesis called the dualistic hypothesis. It's the idea that there's your soul is within you. It's the little you that's looking out the windows of your eyes, is how they would put it. Right, you've got a consciousness about you. you have something that's within you that's aware. And the reason why psychology would call it the dualist hypothesis is because they couldn't figure out exactly where in the brain that consciousness is at. How did you? Everyone could probably take a step back and see, okay, there's a little me inside me, theoretically, that's looking through my eyes, right? I'm not my body, I'm inside my body, right? Well, what part of the brain has that? They can't find it. And so there's a hypothesis that we are both physical and spiritual. And that the spiritual is not in the physical, and it's just looking out. Dualist, two sides, right? It's hard to put your finger on. It's hard to put your finger on.
It's hard to put your finger on breath and wind and.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And do we have to define that to go to heaven?
Nope.
Nope.
You know, talking about our new spiritual bodies, Paul says, 2 Corinthians 5:7, we walk by faith, not by sight. We can't picture all the spiritual, but we're not supposed to. We've got enough problems with the physical, don't we? Figuring out the physical. Yeah. So, yeah. We only got a couple of minutes left here. Let's see, what verse were we in? We were, what?
Same one.
Same one, yeah. Let's go into verse 8. You also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Establish your hearts, that's the idea of making firm your hearts, setting it into a certain position to stabilize it, to make firm. Again, that idea that we've danced around all evening is try to regulate your heart, try to stabilize your emotions, try to weather the storm and not be tossed to and fro is the inclination that we often have. Right? We want to get carried away with the drama of it all. You've heard of mob mindset or mob mentality, right? Or with sports, bandwagoners, right? Terry looks back and forth. Right?
Right.
That's the temptation. But even in sports, they know that bandwagoners aren't good. Mob mentality is not good. We have to find the internal. We have to not let the external affect us so much inside. That's a chore. That's a task. It's a hard concept to figure out. Okay, we got 2 minutes left. We've had a lot of thoughts this evening, so let's kind of wrap them up. Any final thoughts, comments, or questions for this evening on James 5? Nothing? You guys spent the whole evening talking. Now you're just like, oh, well, I'm regulating my emotions now. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me just see where my notes are at. Maybe I can add one more thing here. Nope. Okay. We'll just finish there. How's that? We'll pick up on James chapter 5 and verse 9, Lord willing, next week.